morning, everyone. On behalf of IEEE Computer Society Bangalore chapter, myself Vishwas and my colleague Anand, who is our secretary, we welcome you to this webinar. And we are very glad that you took some time out of your busy schedule today to join this webinar. And me and Anand will take you through the next 1 hour, 15 minutes. So today's webinar is part of the IEEE Computer Society, it's Goa Center for Applied, Center for AI Research webinar series 2020. And this webinar will be delivered by Dr. Sriparna Saha from IIT Patna. And the topic is unsupervised techniques for search result clustering and summarization. So we'll be bringing these webinars from time to time, hopefully every week, either Saturday or Friday. We'll keep you updated. So we also had a couple of webinars in the last few months as part of our Celebrating Computing series. We had a lot of prominent speakers from both academia as well as industry. I hope some of you had a chance to attend these webinars. So moving on to today's webinar. This will cover different multi-objective based clustering techniques and their applications in search result clustering and summarization. Dr. Sriparna Saha, she received her MTech and PhD in computer science from Indian Statistical Institute, Kolkata in 2005 and 2011 respectively. She is currently a faculty member in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering at IIT Patna. She has also published a book by Springer Verlag and authored or co-authored more than conferences and journals. Her current research interests include text mining, machine learning, multi-objective optimization, and biomedical information extraction. She's a prominent publisher. She has a lot of credits to her publications in terms of the H-index and I-index. And she's also been awarded with many awards, both nationally as well as internationally. And she's been a visiting scientist or a scholar both in Europe and the US. And you can follow her work and her profile at iitp.ac.in, Sriparna. So welcome to Sriparna. We are really glad to have you as a speaker as part of this webinar series. And we thank you for accepting our invitation. And in the next 1 hour, please feel free. Questions will be posted by the participants in the chat window. We need not take the questions in between because it will wreck the flow. We'll have a question and answer session at the end of the session after a gap of 1 hour. And before I hand over the virtual stage to you, I wanted participants to note that we are one of the most active chapters in IEEE Bangalore section, recognized globally, and please be open to memberships, or if you want to contribute in terms of volunteering or even as a speaker, we would like to hear from you. Please follow us on our website. You can also write to us through this email. We're on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Please follow us. We usually post all our event updates through the social channels. So we'd be really happy to keep you updated. Without much ado, I hand over the stage to Dr. Sriparna. Thank you, Dr. Sriparna. So the stage is yours.
Yeah, good morning to all of you.
Yeah,
And
Dr. Sriparna, give me a moment.
Yes.
Yeah, all participants, you are muted on entry and kindly stay muted during the session and please turn off your videos. Kindly post your questions in the chat window and the speaker will be answering them in the Q&A session. And this session is being recorded. Thanks a lot for joining us today. Over to you, Dr. Sriparna.
Yeah. So yeah, good morning to all of you, and thanks Vishwas and Anand for inviting me for this webinar. And let me start. So my screen is visible.
Yes, it is visible.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So as already I was introduced. So the topic of the presentation is unsupervised techniques for search result clustering and summarization. So I am currently associate professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering, IIT Patna. Also, I am currently the associate in research and development. That is an additional charge that was given to me. And if you have any questions or queries after the talk, you can write to me in this email address. And the paper publications and all the related materials like data sets, results, all are available in my website. So let us start. So this should be the content of our presentation. So first I will introduce the concept of multi-objective optimization because in almost all the techniques we'll be using this concept for developing the techniques. Then we will discuss about multi-objective multi-view clustering, which is a recently developed technique. And we will apply this technique for solving a information retrieval problem, which is called search result clustering. I will introduce the problem statement and then I will show how can we apply multi-objective multi-view clustering for solving search result clustering problems. Then I will introduce the problem of summarization. You know, summarization is a very well-known problem in natural language processing, and unsupervised techniques are very popularly used for solving the summarization problem. So there are two problem statements under summarization: figure associated summarization and the microblog or the tweet summarization. So these are recently introduced terms. So I will discuss in detail how summarization techniques, how a multi-objective clustering technique can be used to solve these problems. So let me start with the basic concept of multi-objective optimization. So you can understand from the term itself, multi-objective means optimizing more than one objective function. So like you can see here that if suppose you want to buy a car and you want to only optimize the cost, then it is called single objective optimization. But if you want to optimize more than one objective, like cost and comfort both, then it is called multi-objective optimization. So multi-objective optimization is different from single objective optimization because here there is no concept of global optima. You can't get a single solution where both the objectives are optimized, because in general objective functions are conflicting in nature. So if you want to if you want to minimize cost, comfort will also reduce, and if you want to maximize comfort, cost will also go high. So these two objective functions are conflicting to each other. So there is no global optimal solution. Like in single objective optimization, there is always a global optimal solution. But in multi-objective optimization, we cannot find a global optimal solution where both the objective functions are optimized. So here comes basically the concept of Pareto optimal solutions. Like you can see there, suppose we want to build a bridge. So there are two objectives: bridge weight or cost and the safety. So our aim is to maximize the safety and to minimize the cost. So if you compare solution 1 and solution 2, solution 1 is better with respect to safety, but solution 2 is better with respect to cost. So we can't say the solution 1 is better than solution 2 or solution 2 is better than solution 1. So these two solutions are basically called non-dominated to each other, and they basically form the Pareto optimal set. So the set of all non-dominated solutions is basically form the Pareto optimal set. So now from the Pareto optimal set, depending on the user's need, the user can select a single solution. So this is the definition of multi-objective optimization. So we need to find out a set of basically a vector of decision variables x, which will satisfy some constants. It could be inequality constants or the equality constants, and will simultaneously optimize a number of objective functions. So in general, m is greater than equal to 2. So basically, at least we have to optimize more than two, at least two objective functions have to be optimized. And basically these objective functions are conflicting to each other. It is not possible that if you are optimizing F1, you will also be able to optimize F2. Then it is not, it will not be an ideal multi-object optimization problem. So as I already mentioned that there is no concept of global optima, and we would like to get a set of trade-off solutions. And these trade-off solutions are basically called non-dominated solutions, and they form a Pareto optimal set. So this concept of non-domination is visible from this figure. You can see there are two objective functions, F1 and F2. Both are of maximization type. Now there are suppose 4 solutions, solution 1, solution 2, solution 3, and solution 4. If you compare any of these pair of solutions, like compare solution 1 and solution 2, solution 1 is better with respect to F2, but solution 2 is better with respect to F1. So basically these two solutions are called non-dominated solutions. So you can see that all the solutions in this font, all the solutions in this curve are basically non-dominated to each other. And this curve is basically called Pareto optimal surface. But if you compare solution 5 with solution 2, see both the objective functional values of solution 5 are lower compared to solution 2. So basically solution 5 is dominated by solution 2. So solution 5 is not a good solution. So solution 5 is dominated by 2, 3, 4, but not by 1, because if you compare solution 1 and solution 5, 5 is better with respect to F1 and 1 is better with respect to F2. So we developed a simultaneous based multi-objective optimization technique. So simultaneous is a very popular single objective optimization algorithm, which is based on the annealing process of metallurgy. So what is the annealing process? So we can initially have a liquid at a low temperature, at a high temperature, and then if we gradually reduce the temperature, we will be getting the crystalline structure. And basically this temperature reduction would be in a steady manner, so that there should not be any hole in the crystalline structure. So simultaneous annealing is very popularly used for solving different single object optimization problems, but there are very few attempts in solving multi-object optimization problem using simultaneous annealing. So basically we tried to apply simultaneous annealing for solving multi-object optimization problem. And that algorithm is basically named as AMOSA, or the Archive Multi-Objective Simultaneous Annealing. So there are many new concepts which are incorporated in the AMOSA process. One is that archive, because as I mentioned to you, that we need to store a set of solutions. So how to store? This non-dominated set of solutions have to be stored somewhere. So for that reason, archive is introduced. Archive always holds the set of non-dominated solutions. This single linkage clustering is used to increase the diversity. So basically this archive is a limited entity. Archive is a list which is having two limits, hard limit and the soft limit. So whenever the archive size crosses soft limit, single linkage clustering is used to reduce the size to hard limit, and that way it basically increases the diversity of solutions which are stored in the archive. Then there is a concept called the amount of domination, which is used to measure the acceptance probability. So you know in simultaneous learning, it basically works with a single solution. It selects a solution from the archive as the current solution. Then it basically generates a new solution from the current solution by the use of some operator, which is called the perturbation operator. And now this new solution and the current solution have to be compared. If the new solution is better than the current solution, the new solution is selected as the next current solution. Otherwise, there are many stages, many conditions based on which current point is basically selected. So amount of domination basically measures the amount, like we have already seen that here solution, if you compare solution 2 and solution 5, so solution 2 dominates solution 5, but what is the amount of domination? How much better the solution 2 is with respect to solution 5? That quantity is basically called amount of domination, and that is basically used for generating the acceptance probabilities. And then situation specific acceptance probabilities are there. So basically, this AMOSA is a old now I must say it is a now a old algorithm, but it's very heavily used by researchers. So total citations of AMOSA is more than 700, and researchers all over the world are basically using AMOSA for solving different optimization problems. So what we did, we applied AMOSA for solving clustering problem. You know, clustering means a grouping of objects into different categories based on their similarities. Like all the pink points, all the pink points are somehow similar to each other, so they basically form a cluster. Similarly, these purple points form another cluster, and these blue points form the third cluster. So basically, clustering means grouping of objects based on their similarities into different categories. So now there are two concepts called the inter-cluster similarity and the inter-cluster similarity. So inter-cluster means within the clusters, points should be very much similar to each other. And inter-cluster means the cluster should be separated from each other. So there are two concepts, and these two basically have to be optimized simultaneously. We need to minimize the intra-clusters. We need to basically minimize the intra-cluster distance, and we need to maximize the inter-cluster distance. So basically, as you understand, there are two conflicting objectives. So basically, clustering problem can often be formulated as a multi-objective optimization problem. Here the task is to simultaneously optimize different cluster quality measures. So in the literature, there are many cluster quality measures which are optimized to check the quality of the clusters. So if you only optimize a single quality, then there is no guarantee that you will be getting always a good partitioning, because always the cluster quality measures are biased towards a particular shape or structure. So if you want to find out different structures or shapes from data set, then we need to simultaneously optimize different cluster quality measures. So need to optimize simultaneously different cluster quality measures, capturing different data properties. So that's why this clustering problem can be easily formulated as a multi-objective optimization problem. So there is another motivation of multi-objective clustering, because as you know, multi-objective optimization provides us a set of optimal solutions. So, and often for a particular data set, we have multiple solutions exist. Like you know, this data set, this is the correct solution, but this is also a possible solution where we are going for the compactness. We are basically minimizing the compactness. Here there is a solution which basically is locally connected, or connectivity issue is basically somehow captured. So all these are possible ways of partitioning the same data set. So if you want to generate all possible ways of partitioning a data set simultaneously, then we need to pose the problem of clustering as a multi-objective optimization problem. Now I would like to give you an introduction of this search result clustering. So first of all, we need to understand the problem called Watson's induction. So what is Watson's induction? So sometimes a single word can have multiple meanings, like the word bass. So I can hear bass sound. Here bass refers to low frequency tone, and they like grill bass. Here bass is a type of fish. So is a particular word can have different meanings, but based on the context, we can understand the meaning. So the Watson induction is basically a task of automatically inducing the different senses of a given word. Similarly, you know, some queries, like when you are suppose you are giving a query in a web browser, some queries are also ambiguous in nature, like Puma or Apple. So Puma could be animal name, Puma could be a brand name. So if you are searching with this query Puma, now the web retrieval algorithms will retrieve all types of web pages. Some web pages will refer Puma as a animal name, some will refer Puma as a brand name. So now how to categorize these web snippets into different categories based on their semantic similarity. So this is the task that user is giving a query, search engine is retrieving a set of results. Now these results can be grouped into multiple clusters based on their meaning. So the Puma, which are referring to animal, the web snippets where Puma is referred as an animal should be grouped together, and the web snippets where Puma is basically referred as a brand name should be grouped together. So what we understand that there are some search result clustering algorithms, but most of them are basically single objective in nature. They optimize only a single cluster quality measure. Now let me introduce another concept which is called the multi-view learning. So sometimes a sample can have different views. Like take the example of a person. Person can be detected by the use of fingerprint or by the use of iris or by the use of face. The same person can have different views. If you are considering fingerprint, then the person is having some attributes or the features. If you are considering the iris, then the person is having some other set of attributes or the features. And if you are considering the face, the person is having some other set of attributes. So basically these are called views or the modality. And each modality can have multiple set of attributes to describe the view. So now at the time of clustering, can we utilize all these views together? Like no, instead of combining them all together, can we individually for different views? View. And under that we samples is having a single view, but they are having basically multiple views. So they have some image view. So if suppose these samples represent web documents, then these web documents have some image view as well as some text view. So now there is additional objective function which basically determines the agreement between partitionings obtained using different views. Because now we will be considering the views individually, we will be clustering based on the individual views. But finally, user wants a single way of partitioning considering all the views. So basically, we have to give a consensus partitioning to the user. So how to find out the consensus partitioning? So we will be optimizing these two objective functions for individual views plus the agreement between partitionings obtained using different views. So basically, as there are multiple objective functions now, so basically multi-objective optimization is used to solve this particular problem. So this is the problem formulation. There is a set of document samples. Each sample is represented by a set of views. Each view is having a set of features, and then there are some objective functions. CB, these are the basically some cluster quality measure for individual views. So if you have m views, we'll be getting m number of partitions. So the quality of these partitions can be checked with the help of a cluster quality index. So basically CP1 represents the cluster quality of the partitioning obtained using view 1. Similarly, CPM basically represents the cluster quality of the partitioning obtained using view M. And AI basically denotes the agreement index. So our task is to partition these samples into some k number of clusters. So k will be automatically determined, and basically these are non-overlapping clusters, so there is no overlapping between the partitionings, and we simultaneously optimize the objective functions. The simultaneous optimization of these objective functions provides a Pareto optimal form. Basically, this is the task. So this is our flowchart, how we solve this problem. We use the AMOSA as the underlying optimization technique, which basically optimizes this multiple objective functions. And then what we did, we first normalize the data, extract features for individual views. Like I mentioned that web snippet is having two views. So for the image view, you have to extract some features. For the text view, we need to extract some features. Then we have to represent the state and the archive initialization. So your new archive is a set of solutions. So in order to represent the clustering solution, we have used the center-based encoding. So individual views is having a partitioning. So the partitions are having multiple clusters. The centers of all these clusters are basically encoded in the form of a string or a solution. So we apply k-means like criteria to obtain the partitioning corresponding to a particular view. Using the initial set of centers, we apply k-means algorithm to get the partitioning for the particular view. Then we compute the PBM index. So PBM index we will be introducing later on. It is a cluster validity index which checks the quality of a partitioning. So PBM index value is calculated for individual views, and also we calculate the agreement index. So this agreement index basically gives us the similarity between the partitionings obtained using individual views. So with there are multiple objective functions, and all these objective functions are simultaneously optimized by the use of AMOSA. So basically AMOSA optimizes all these objective functions together. Now after this, we basically in a string we have individual partitioning solutions for individual views. We need to generate a consensus partitioning satisfying the multiple views, and then we have to update the string with the new set of centers. Mutation is an operator to change the set of cluster centers, because you know the search space is huge. So we need to find out the optimal number of clusters and also the optimal set of cluster centers. So in order to find out that, we apply some mutation operation, and then we obtain a set of non-dominated solutions on the final Pareto platform and generate consensus partitioning for a given solution satisfying the multiple views. So this is our state representation, solution representation. So solution is basically, you know, here the center-based encoding is used. So indeed, there are individual partitions. Individual partitions are having individual cluster centers. The centers are basically represented in the solution. Like you can see, suppose there are two clusters, and each there are two views. So there are 3 attributes for view 1, 2 attributes for view 2. So basically, these two basically represent the cluster 1 of view 1 cluster with the components of cluster 1 for view 1 and view 2. Similarly, these are the components of cluster 2 for view 1 and view 2. So we basically, user has to give two parameters, k-mean and k-max. K-mean is the minimum possible number of clusters, and k-max is the maximum possible number of clusters. And given the range, the algorithm is capable of automatically determining the number of clusters. It will generate a value randomly between k-mean to k-max, and then the length is basically equal to d into ki. So ki is the number of clusters selected for the ith solution. And then basically this is the encoding, and once you know the encoding is done, like a solution is having suppose 4 clusters. Now how to get the partitioning? So we can get the partitioning by the use of k-means algorithm. So k-means, if you know the cluster center, if you know the cluster center, then the points which are similar to, basically the points are assigned to the nearby cluster centers. Like all these grid points will be assigned to this cluster, all these yellow points will be assigned to this cluster, all these red points will be assigned to this cluster. So always the points are assigned to the nearby cluster. So we have a set of centers, and then we formulate the cluster by the use of k-means algorithm. And then the new cluster centers are basically average of all the points which belong to a particular cluster. So basically, if these are the 4 points belonging to a particular cluster, their average will be calculated, and that average will basically replace the cluster center. Similarly, these 3 points average will be calculated, and that will basically replace the cluster center. So this way we are formulating the clusters. For the mutation operations, because as I mentioned that search space is huge, we need to change the search space. So for this, there are 3 types of search operations. Either we are changing the individual cluster centers, or we are deleting one cluster, or we are inserting a cluster. So there are 3 types of cluster mutation operations. Either we are changing the individual clusters, or deleting a cluster, or inserting a new cluster. So this way, it basically gives the algorithm the capability to automatically determine the number of clusters. Now for the objective functions, mostly PBM index is used, but in other version of the algorithm, Xibeny index is also used. These two are popular cluster quality measures. So PBM index is basically called Pakhira Bandyopadhyay Moulik index. You can understand from the equations. So this is basically a combination of cluster compactness and the separation. So DB is nothing but the separation between two clusters. And EW is nothing but the cluster compactness. So you need to find out the similarities within a cluster and then take the summation of all the similarities. So basically EW is the compactness and DB is basically the separation. So PBM index is basically a ratio of separation and the compactness. About the Xibeny index, so Xibeny index is again the opposite. Here in the numerator we have the compactness and denominator is having the separation. So basically Xibeny index has to be minimized and PBM index has to be maximized. So any of this cluster quality index can be used to measure the quality of a partitioning obtained using a particular view. Now there is a new objective function which is called the agreement index. So basically agreement index measures how similar two partitionings are. So we have, if suppose we have m number of views, then we will be having m number of partitionings. So now we need to calculate the similarities between the partitionings. So for that, adjoint matrix is basically first computed. So adjoint matrix is of size n into n. So if xi and xj belong to the same cluster, then the corresponding entry in the adjoint matrix is 1. Otherwise, if they belong to two different clusters, then the value is 0. And for the diagonal cases, the value is always 1. Now you have the adjoint matrix for view 1, adjoint matrix for view 2. We can easily calculate this identity matrix. So basically, if the values are same, that means I and j points are in the same cluster, both in view 1 and also in view 2. So then we are putting the value equal to 1. So counting the number of ones will basically give us the agreement between two partitionings. So basically, if we can count how many such ones exist in the identity matrix, then we will be getting the value of NA, which is the agreement value. And the disagreement is basically n square minus NA because we have total n square number of elements. N square possible pairs are there. We can assume that in the matrix we have n square number of elements. So then EI or the agreement index is basically computed over for each pair of views. We need to calculate this agreement index. This +1 is used just to avoid the division by 0. And then we have to compute the final agreement index, which is basically calculated over all pair of views. So we need to consider all pair of views. We have m into m minus 1 by 2 number of views, and we have to basically calculate the total AI index. Now how to find out the consensus partitioning? So suppose we have this partitioning formed by view 1 and this partitioning formed by view 2. First we need to find out the mapping. So B will map to E, A will map to D, C will map to F. And now try to find out the overlapping region of these different clusters. So from this overlapping region, we need to find out a cluster center. So we can take the average of these 4 points as the cluster center, of a new cluster center, and then we can apply K-means-like criteria to assign the other points. So for the consensus partitioning, we'll be having 3 cluster centers, which are basically average of these overlapping regions. And then for the rest of the points, we can assign them to the nearby cluster center. So we have shown the results of this approach on some standard, UCI machine learning repository datasets. These are some standard datasets collected from UCI machine learning repository. But the problem was these datasets was having only a single view. How to generate the other view? So we applied the principal component analysis, and then the attributes selected by principal component analysis are basically used as the second view. So we have now 2 views. One view is the original set of attributes, and the second view is basically the attributes selected by PCA. And then we applied our proposed approach on these data sets, and we compared with multi-view k-means, and the multi-objective ensemble clustering. So you can see some results. So Minkowski score, this RAND index is basically, these are called external cluster validity index. So they basically compare the partitioning, obtained partitioning with the actual gold standard partitioning. So actually we know that for these data sets, what should be the clusters. That information is already available with these data sets. That IRIS is having 3 clusters, each cluster is having 50 points. So this information is already available. So RAND index basically compares the obtained partitioning with the actual partitioning. And then if the high RAND index means the similarity is high. So basically if our algorithm is better, then the similarity RAND index value would be 1. So you can see that in almost all the cases, our proposed approach performs much better compared to the existing approaches. We also computed the Minkowski score. So Minkowski score is again an external cluster validity index, which compares the obtained partitioning with the gold standard partitioning. But the definition of Minkowski score is such that it has to be minimized. So we can see that over all the data sets, our algorithm attains the minimal value of Minkowski score. Next, we apply this approach on search result clustering datasets. So as I already introduced the problem statement, search result clustering. So now a web snippet can have 2 different views, syntactic view and the semantic view. So syntactic view means whether the words are in a suppose if there are 2 web snippets which are referring Puma as an animal name, then the words which will be used in these web snippets would be the same. Somehow the same set of words will be used to describe the animal Puma. So basically that gives us a syntactic view that whether the same words are used to describe the web snippets. And semantic view is basically trying to capture the meaning of the web snippets. So in order to capture the syntactic view, we have used the TF-IDF scores. You know the document, basically all the terms in the documents are extracted, and then for each term we calculate the term frequency and the inverse document frequency, and then a document is basically represented as a metric, as a vector of TF-IDF values. So similarly, here in case of semantic view, we represent we basically computed the semantic similarity between 2 web snippets. So suppose there are 2 web snippets, DI and DJ. So DI is collection of some words. DJ is also collection of some words. So basically, you can see that it is basically equal to the symmetric conditional probability of the individual words. And the symmetric conditional probability of the individual words are their joint probability by the individual probability. So if 2 words are co-occurring, that means they are highly similar. So this way basically we are computing the semantic view. So we applied the proposed approach on this dataset with these 2 views, syntactic view and the semantic view. And this is the approach where only semantic similarity is used as the view. So our obtained results show that this multi-view approach performs much better compared to single view approaches, and also multi-objective optimization performs much better compared to the single objective counterparts. So then next we consider the two other views of the web snippets. So as I mentioned that web snippets are also collection of images and the text. So sometimes if you consider only the text, maybe there will be no similarity at all. But if you will see the web images, you can easily find out the similarities between the web snippets. So basically we extracted 2 views, image view and the textual view. For the image view, we have used the VGGNet, which is a deep learning architecture, to extract high-level features. So each document is basically represented as a vector of some features. And textual view is basically combine the benefits of both Word2Vec and the TF-IDF. So Word2Vec basically represents the semantic meaning, and the TF-IDF basically represents the syntactic similarity. So basically there are 2 views. So we first find out the Word2Vec. So Word2Vec is basically, as I mentioned, that a word is represented in the semantic space by a vector. So Word2Vec is a very renowned model in deep learning, and it shows that the similarity between king and queen is very much equal to the similarity between boy and girl. So their semantic space is easily captured by in the word-to-vec model. So by applying the word-to-vec model, we'll be getting some vector representations of different words, and then we find out the cosine similarity of these two words, and then take the average of all those cosine similarities. So that will give us the embedding similarity between two documents, DI and DJ. Now we multiply this with the TF-IDF based similarity. So we have this semantic similarity, we multiply this with the TF-IDF based similarity, and that basically gives us the text-based similarity between two documents. Similarly, we have the image-based similarity as well. So we get the image representations from the web snippets. Each image basically is represented by a vector, and then we calculate the cosine similarity between the image vectors. And that basically gives us the similarity between two documents. And this mod DI represents number of images in the ith document, and the mod DJ represents the number of images in the jth document. So the flowchart is very much similar whatever we have discussed till now, that now this AMOSA will basically optimize these objective functions. As there are two views, so we are having two PPM index. PPM index value computed for text view, and the PPM index value computed for the image view. Individual on the individual views, we have to get the individual partitionings. And there is this agreement index, which basically calculates the similarity between the partitionings. So all these objective functions are simultaneously optimized by the AMOSA process. And then finally, we get a set of Pareto-optimal solutions. So some results. So these are the data sets that we have used for search result clustering, Ambient, MORISQ, and ODP. These are standard data sets, benchmark data sets. Now we only added the image part. So image part were originally not part of the data set, but we manually extracted the images from the web pages, and then we added them as the image view. These are the results. So you can see that when we are using image and the text view, there is a huge performance improvement. So this approach only uses the semantic view, and this approach only uses the word-to-vec based views, word-to-vec based view. But when we are using two views, the semantic view, the text view, and the image view, there is a huge performance improvement. So basically in this work, this is the first attempt to develop a multi-objective based automated clustering technique for multi-view datasets. And these algorithms are capable of automatically determining the number of clusters. And we applied this for the search result clustering with the novel use of image and text features. No novel level data is used. And we proposed a very generic approach which can be used for solving any multimodal clustering problem. And use of multi-object optimization helps in getting a set of alternative solutions on the Pareto optimal front. Depending on the domain requirement, a single solution can be selected. And recently, we are also working on multi-view based approach for scientific document clustering. You know, scientific document is having multiple views. Like you can consider the bibliographic, the references as a view. You can consider its images as a second view, and also the text portion as a third view. So a scientific document can have multiple different views. So can we use all these views together for clustering the scientific documents? So that is currently we are working on. So now let me, these are some publications out of this work. So papers are published in ACM Transactions on Knowledge Discovery from Data. This is a very reputed journal in this particular field. So two of the papers got published in this ACM Transaction, and one paper published in PLOS One. Now let me start another concept which is called the summarization. So summarization means task of automatically creating a compressed version of the text document. To understand that you have a set of documents, you need a summarized version of these documents. So text that is produced from one or more text that conveys information, important information in the original text, and that is no longer than half of the original text and usually significantly less than that. So this is basically called the summarization. Summarization is important because you know so much information is available in the internet everywhere, and nobody is having time to go through all this information. So we always believe in a summarized form. So summarization saves our time. Summarization basically compresses the large information. It helps in active reading. It's easy to implement. It helps in decision making. It basically highlights the central theme. There are two different types of summarization techniques, extractive and abstractive. So extractive means from the, there is a text and the text is having multiple sentences. You just carefully select few sentences for your summary. You out of this, suppose originally you have 1000 sentences, you want to get only 10 sentences in the summary. So carefully select 10 sentences from the out of 1000 sentences. But abstractive means you have to somehow combine all these sentences together and then need to generate new sentences. So the sentences in the summary are not exactly similar to the original sentences, but they are basically functions of these sentences. So these are, you can see the examples of the different types of summary. There are some applications of summarization as well, like we can have this query-based summary. Suppose user is putting a query and then he or she wants to get relevant information about the particular query. Then single document or the multi-document summarization. So if you have only single document, then it is called the single document summarization. But if you want to generate multiple, if you generate a summary after reading multiple documents, then it is called the multi-document summarization. Figurative summarization. So suppose you have a figure and you want to get a summary of the particular figure, then it's called the figure associated summarization. Web-based summarization for summarizing web pages. Email-based for summarizing emails. Then personalized information specific to a user's need. Sentiment-based opinions are also detected. And microblogs for summarizing the set of tweets. So there are different quality measures of summarization. Like when we are getting the summary, we need to increase the diversity. Like the similar sentences should not be present in the summary. If two sentences convey the same meaning, then one can be discarded. Position of the sentence in the document. Initially, if you are reading a particular document or any particular news, you will see that the initial sentences are very important. Initially, basically, the reporter or the authors used to describe the event. So the initial few sentences are really important. So what is the position of your sentence in the original document? That is very important for the summary. Length of the sentence. If the sentence is very small, that means it doesn't convey any information. So basically, we need to increase the length of the sentences which are in the summary. Coverage. So finally, your summary should cover the entire theme or entire information. Cohesion. The sentences which are in the summary should be somehow related. They should not be disjoint. Readability, because finally we would like to give the summary to the user, to the reader. So there should be a linkage. Like readability, the reader should feel like reading this. Sentence similarity with the title, like, if there is a title, then the sentences which is similar to the title, maybe they are important. So there are many objective functions, and that's why we decided to use the concept of multi-object optimization for solving the summarization problem. So in this talk, we will mainly discuss about these two problems, figurative and the microblog. So now let me just give a small overview of this evolutionary algorithms. So evolutionary algorithms are biological inspired by the biological phenomena. They basically maintain a population of solutions, and all these solutions are called basically chromosomes. And chromosomes, on a set of chromosomes, we can apply different operations like crossover and the mutation to generate a new set of solutions. And then there is iterative procedure which is called the generation, and then finally over the generations the population is evolved, and finally at the end of the last generation the population basically contains the best set of solutions. So differential evolution is such an evolutionary technique, and it basically it involves maintaining a population of candidate solution. It applies crossover, mutation, and selection to finally determine the optimal set of solutions. So initially, a set of solutions are maintained. Out of the set of solutions, 3 solutions are randomly selected to generate new solution. New solution is compared with the old solution, and then finally a new solution, finally some trial vectors are generated, and then through selection we can select a good set of solutions. Self-organizing map is another concept which is used in our approach. The self-organizing map basically is an unsupervised machine learning technique. So it is used for data visualization or the feature selection. It basically maps a higher dimensional data in a lower dimensional space, and basically it preserves the neighborhood. Like in the higher dimensional space, if 2 points are in the neighborhood, in the lower dimensional space as well, the points should basically make the same neighborhood. So this neighborhood structure is preserved while we are reducing the dimension in self-organizing map. There is a concept called the word mover distance. So word mover distance is basically the amount of distance that the embedded words of one text needs to travel to reach to the embedded words of another text. Like see, suppose there are two sentences. Obama speaks to the media in Illinois and the president greets in the press in Chicago. So first we need to do a mapping. Like Obama maps to president, speaks maps to greet, Chicago maps to Illinois, media maps to press. So then we have to find out what is how much distance these words needs to travel to basically map to the other word. So if the two sentences similar, then their WMD would be 0. So this WMD distance is used as a similarity measure for our summarization task. So what is figure associated summarization? So suppose in a document, in a scientific document, you have many figures. So can we generate a summary that what is the figure about? Can we generate a summary which can describe the figure? So this is called basically the figure summarization. So figures are always difficult to interpret by the humans as well as the machines. So in the document, maybe there are many examples which are referring to the figure. Can we somehow get a summary of those sentences which refer to the particular figure? So it is said that 50% of the text in the biomedical articles are related to figures only. So that's why but captions are limited. Captions are not basically they are not elaborative to understand the figure. So basically we need to understand the figure from the summary. So what we did, we applied a binary differential evolution technique. So here the length of the solution is equal to number of sentences in the document. So if the document is having 1000 sentences, the length is basically equal to 1000. The position represents whether the sentence will be selected for the summary or not. Like 1 represents the sentence will be selected, 0 represents it will not be selected. And then many sentences are there in the biomedical article. Difficult to find the relevant sentences summarizing a figure. So by the use of differential evolution, we would like to find out a appropriate set of sentences which can be used to describe the figure. In order to represent the sentence, we have used the BioBART. So BART is an embedding technique which basically takes a sentence and then gives the vector representation of the sentence. So in order to generate the vector representations, we have used the BioBART. There are different, this is not a simple differential evolution, but this is a binary differential evolution where two variants are used, rand1 bin and the current to best one bin. So this rand1 bin helps in maintaining diversity, and this is current to best bin helps us in convergence. And also in differential evolution, there are two parameters, CR and F, and it's very difficult to select the values of these parameters. So what we did, we take a range of these values and then randomly select a value from this range at a particular generation. So these are the objective functions that are used for optimization. One is this, the cosine similarity between the sentences in the summary. So basically we need to increase the diversity. So the sentences which are in the summary should be disjoint to each other. So basically we are measuring the cosine similarity between sentences in the summary, and that is basically minimized. Then measures the anti-redundancy between sentences of the summary in terms of textual entailment relationships. So sometimes we are measuring the cosine similarity to find out the similarities. Sometimes the textual entailment is basically used to find out the similarities between the sentences. Then calculated the number of entailed sentences of the summary to the figures caption. If the summary is very similar to if the sentences in the summary are very similar to the figures caption, then they are important. So in this way, we basically define many objective functions. Mostly they cover the diversity and the cohesion and the coverage. So what is textual entailment? So a sentence P is said to be entailed by sentence Q if P can be inferred from Q. Like you see, take this example, if you help the needy, God will reward you. And there is a hypothesis, giving money to a poor man has good consequences. So you can say this text is basically inferred from this hypothesis. So we can say that yes, this sentence entails this sentence. So basically, we use this concept to find out the similarities between two sentences. If the sentence in the summary entails the sentence in the email's caption, then basically we say that they are similar. So this is the overall loop, which is very much similar to our previous case. It is the loop of the differential evolution. So we need to find out the input is the figure with the corresponding caption and the sentences in the article. We need to pre-process the sentences. Then population initialization. We need to calculate the objective functions. Then we have to form a new population. Have to find out the objective function values of the new population. We have to merge the old population with the new population, apply non-dominator sorting, and finally select the best P solutions. So we applied the technique on two datasets, FigSum GS1, FigSum GS2. And here the goal summary is actual summary is already available by the annotators. And these are the results. So we varied different objective function combinations. Because we have 5 to 6 objective functions, so we do a ablation study of the objective functions, and we have shown that when we are using these set of objective functions, we are getting the best results. So we also compared with the different existing techniques, and you can understand that our proposed technique always performs better than the existing techniques. This is one example. This is a figure, and this is the actual summary and the predicted summary. So actual summary is generated by the human annotators, and our predicted summary is very much similar to the actual summary. And this parallel set basically shows that yes, there are multiple solutions on the curve. So some of the main points on error analysis. So caption of one figure is referring to the other figure. The captions of some figures refer to captions of some other figures of the same article. And the captions of some figures have only 2-3 words. So these are the main reasons that we identified after making the error analysis, that in some cases our algorithm fails, and these are the main reasons for error. So next I will quickly tell you about this microblog summarization. So microblog summarization means tweet summarization. You know, during the disaster events, people are very active in Twitter. They used to tweet about the events. Now from the set of tweets, can we get the relevant tweets which are important for the rescue operation? So several useful information can be extracted from such tweets, which can help us in managing the situation by the government. So basically this is the task. We have a set of tweets. We can classify the tweets into two categories, situational and the non-situational. So non-situational means simply empathy or some emotional tweets where there is no information. But the situational tweets means where there is information, there are some important information which are there in the tweets. Now we would like to summarize the situational tweets, and that information we would like to provide to the rescue team. So this is a task that we have a set of tweets. We want to select only those set of tweets which are informative, and the length of the total number of tweets should lie in a range S min to X max, and we have to optimize a set of objective functions. So the same framework, the previous framework is used. We used a binary differential evolution framework. Here basically the length of the solution is equal to number of available tweets, and 0 and 1 represents whether the tweet is selected or not selected. And then there is a SOM based operator. So basically, as I mentioned, the SOM basically finds the neighborhood, And when we are applying the mutation on the crossover, it would be better if we apply the operations on the neighborhood. That basically gives quick convergence. Then what buffer distance is used to compute the similarities between two tweets. And here, three objective functions are used: anti-redundancy, maximum TF-IDF score, and the maximum length. So anti-redundancy means that the tweets which are in the summary should not be, their distances should be maximum. Suppose TI and TJ are two tweets in the summary, then their distances should be maximum. They should not be related to each other. And maximum TF-IDF score basically denotes whether the tweet is informative or not, it contains information or not. And length also we are trying to maximize. We want to pick only those tweets which are lengthy. The same flowchart is basically used here, which is used in the earlier cases. We applied our approach on the datasets. So these are standard datasets available online. So some events like Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting in USA, floods in Uttarakhand state of India, typhoon in Philippines, bomb blast in Hyderabad. So these are the events in their year of happening, and some tweets are collected. These are the number of tweets. And in order to compute the similarity with the actual summary, so we have the predicted summary and we have the actual summary. In order to find out the similarity, we can use the Roos score. And now, yeah, as I mentioned, that finally a set of solutions are selected on the Pareto optimal set. How to select a single solution? Because all the solutions are providing different ways of summarizing the set of tweets. How to select a single solution to be given to the user? So there are two methods, supervised method and the unsupervised method. In the supervised method, we compute the Roos score. We already know the goal actual summary. We can find out the similarity between the predicted summary and the actual summary, and then report the summary which is having the maximum Roos score. And in unsupervised way, we have different objective functions. We take the weighted sum of all these objective functions and then select the function, select the particular solution which is having the highest weight, highest sum of these weighted objective functions. So these are some results. So you can see that we again did some ablation study. We varied the objective function combinations. And then we have shown that the best results are marked in bold. And we also applied our approach with SOM and without SOM version. And these are the things that best results that we obtained. We also computed the average over all the data sets. And this is the comparison with respect to the existing methods. And again, we have shown it can be easily seen that our approach performs much better than the existing techniques. So basically now let us conclude. So two unsupervised summarization approaches are developed to summarize figure and the microblocks. So multi-objective evolutionary algorithm is used as the underlying optimization strategy. So some future works I would like to highlight. Like till now, when we are doing this tweet summarization, we have not considered the images which are associated with the tweets, because tweet is limited in length. So often users post some images to describe the event. So when we are doing the summarization, can we also use the tweet and the images together for generating the summary? So that will be called a multimodal summarization, because then summary will have two different views. And the second is the online microblog summarization. Tweets that keep on coming. So it's not a static approach. So initially, maybe we can have a tweet summary, but then we must keep on updating this tweet summary based on the arrival of the new tweets. So yes, so these are some related publications that we published in IEEE transactions, the ACM transactions. This tweet summarization work got published in IEEE transaction, and the figure summarization work got published in the same transaction. These are some references, and thank you. And thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Dr. Sriparna. So participants, if you have any questions, please post them on the chat window and we'll be happy to take them and pass them across to speaker.
Yeah.
I think there are some questions.
Actually, it's not questions. So participant name is showing like 15048. This is Anupam Dasas. Yeah. So actually, when you join, you have to change your name when you join the call using the WebEx app. That's why it is still showing 15048. So actually, you can. I'm
No,
not
so
sure
I
if you
think
are.
no.
Okay.
I think somebody has sent me privately some question like Amulya Kumar
Okay.
has sent.
Ma'am, before we
Yeah.
begin, so if people are sending questions, kindly send them to everyone so that others can also see the questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Thanks a lot. Go ahead.
Yeah. So there are some private questions like Amulya asked me: Is clustered multimetric learning is a particular case of multi-view learning? Multimetric learning, I think multimetric means you are optimizing multiple objective functions. And in case of multi-view learning, we are basically considering the multiple views of the samples. So these are two different concepts. Multimetric means multiple objective functions. So those could be calculated on a single view as well. But multiple view means the same sample has multiple different ways of representations. So I think Amulya, these two are different concepts. Yeah. So then,
Yeah, I can see Nagraja has his hand raised. Do you have a question?
Hello.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, I have a question.
sure.
Right, Madam, you're trying to talk about single, optimization and multi, right, no parameters optimization, right? Have you of
I'm not sure if it is only for me, but I can hear his voice breaking.
hello?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
This, please
Couldn't
repeat.
hear you properly.
yeah. So can I just pose the question in the chat? We are not able to hear you. Your
Hello.
voice is breaking. Hello.
Yeah, is it audible now?
Yeah,
Yeah, it is
yes.
audible, but it is breaking in between.
Okay, okay. I in a multi-level to to what parameters really rate, right?
Hello.
Okay.
Yeah,
I got a partial. I don't
yeah.
know.
Even I got every alternate word.
Yeah. So could you
Uh,
please type in the chat
yeah,
box?
it will be great if you can type it in the chat window so that we can pick up the question.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Sure.
So what I understand is that you are talking about the multi-level classification, no? So in the
Yeah,
multi-level classification, a sample will have multiple class labels. So that is a different task, that a particular sample will have multiple class labels. It can belong to multiple classes. But I was talking about multi-view, where a sample will have multiple ways of representations. So yes, we also worked on multi-level classification. So in multi-level classification, it's very difficult to design a single classifier which can perform well for all the classes. So we developed some ensemble of classification algorithms and how to do a proper ensembling. So that basically we solve using multi-object optimization. So like if you have multiple multi-level classifiers, how to combine their outputs together? What would be the weight values of these outputs? So that we basically solved using multi-object optimization. So maybe if you can write to me, I can refer to a paper of mine where we solve this multi-level classification using multi-object optimization.
yeah. Further discussion, I may send a mail.
Yeah,
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 thank you.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have another question from Siddhartha Chatterjee. Like K-means clustering, is there any summarization algorithm?
So summarization algorithm, as I mentioned, there are two types of summarization, extractive and the abstractive. So in the extractive, mostly optimization techniques are used because you understand it is an optimization problem because you have n number of sentences and you have to select a subset of sentences. So as it is an optimization problem, mostly researchers are posing this problem as an optimization problem and then trying to optimize multiple objective functions. And for the abstractive, it's a natural language generation. So it's not possible without the help of deep learning. Mostly researchers are using different deep learning techniques for solving the abstractive summarization problem. But yes, you are correct that like k-means, you can also use k-means for grouping the sentences into different clusters. And then maybe from the individual clusters, you can pick one sentence, which would be the representative sentence and which could be included in the summary. So k-means can also be used, but k-means is very naive, K-means is having its own disadvantages, like it often gets stuck at local optima. You have to you have to inform about the number of clusters. So it is having its own disadvantages. So that's why I think it's very trivial to use K-means.
Yeah. So if anyone have any questions, kindly post them in the chat window. Uh, we're moving towards the end of the Q&A session as well. Do we have any more questions? Yeah, if you're not like comfortable enough to put that in the chat window, you can unmute yourself and ask the question as well. Do we have any more questions?
Yeah. Questions from my end.
Sure. Yeah, do we have any more questions?
No, Anand. No.
So thank you, participants, for your questions, and thank you, Dr. Sriparna, for taking us through these advanced clustering and summarization problems as applied to search results. It was very informative and valuable to all the participants, I hope. And thank you also for answering some of the questions posed by our participants.
Yep.
And I hand it over to Anand for the concluding remarks.
Yeah, so Dr. Sriparna, before we go, I have some kind of rapid fire kind of questions for you. It's like general questions, nothing technical here. Uh, so these, I think you'll have to like think rapidly and answer these. So the first one is like, so so since you are from the teaching field, have you ever faced a student who asked a very difficult question and which made you thoughtful and you sat there and thought for a moment, oh, this is good, this idea is good, and
Yes.
probably it's a doubt or something that still stays in your mind.
Yeah. There are many such situations because I teach advanced machine learning in IIT Patna. So it's an elective course, and this in advanced machine learning there are many advanced topics. So we mostly teach from the papers and the book, and mostly from the papers, the recent papers. So often
Okay,
students ask me many questions which I am also not comfortable with. So yeah,
sure.
it is very often happen.
Sure. Do you have any like such instance which like on the top of the mind which comes so from the top of the mind, like something that happened and you were like, oh, this is good.
Okay, so yeah, so like like there was a BTech student. I was teaching some the summarization only in the class,
Okay.
and then he just asked me that, Madam, maybe there could be other way of solving the problem. So immediately he went to the board and then he solved the problem in some other way because here we are doing this binary optimization, but he mentioned that maybe we can also use the integer optimization or real-time optimization to solve this particular problem. And then he just formulated the problem statement in the board. And
Mhm.
then we worked together and we published the paper as well. So
Oh,
these are there are many such situations which are really
sure. Uh, yeah. So any instance that happened in your past, like when you were a student, probably in a school or probably in the college or maybe doing your MTech or PhD, which actually increased your interest towards computer science, like which triggered your uh, this journey to pursue computer science and AI ML journey?
Yeah, so I must say I did my master's from Indian Statistical Institute, Kolkata. So when I was doing my MTech, I had not decided about my PhD. But there was a teacher, C.M. Murthy, so who just passed away a few years back. So he used to teach us pattern recognition, and it was so he was so good. He never used any PPT. He always used board to write everything and explain everything. And I think I got the motivation of working in the area of machine learning, pattern recognition after I joined his class. So I miss him because he was the first teacher who taught me machine learning and the pattern recognition.
Yeah, sure. So another question would be like, what do you do in your free time other than like doing some machine learning, teaching, or researching? So when you
So
get some free time out of everything, like you're sitting idle, what do you do?
now in this lockdown period, I am learning cooking. Not learning, I know cooking, but I am improving my cooking skill. So I used to see many YouTube videos, and whenever I get some time, I used to prepare some new dishes. That is my
Okay.
new hobby, basically.
Okay. Do you have a YouTube channel
No,
where
no,
we
I
can
don't
learn
do
from?
YouTube.
Okay.
No. I
Sure.
visit others. And I know I knew cooking, but
Okay.
now I am just improving
Experiments.
by new like new types of cooking like biryani, and then something new that I am basically
Sure.
learning.
Yeah, that's great. So any suggestions for the participants, like for the general public to utilize the lockdown time better?
Yeah, I think these kind of webinars are very useful, and or also there are many Coursera courses available if you really want to do your future studies in machine learning or artificial intelligence. Must go through these Coursera courses. There are many freely available courses there, and then research papers are also available, and these webinars are really very helpful. So I suggest that you please try to attend these webinars because those are mostly in the free times like Saturdays and Sundays when we are mostly available. So you will get to know many search, and now academicians are also free. Like we don't have our classes, we don't have our students are not in the campus, so we are also getting time to to prepare for these webinars and presenting our new research. So that way, I think that these webinars and the Coursera courses would be very much useful for learning the AI/ML. So you just use this lockdown period to learn new concepts of AI/ML and try to explore further. Like for the COVID, we should do some research where AI/ML can be applied, like to design the drugs or to identify the fake news, because the fake news is becoming nowadays very prominent. So if we can apply this AI/ML techniques to identify the fake news and who is basically generating this fake news. So this kind of research we can easily take during the COVID time as well. So that is my suggestion, I think, Anand.
Yeah, thank you. So the next question is also similar. So what would be some advice that you would like to give to someone who's entering the AI ML world? Like this should be more of a like generic way. Like, do you think it is tough? It's not tough. You can pursue it.
No. I don't think it is a very tough subject. So you only need to have a good hold of mathematics and statistics.
Mhm.
If you are good in mathematics and statistics, then you can easily. I think concepts are very
Mhm.
similar to mathematics and statistics. And I don't think that there is any substitute of hard working. You only have to
Yep.
put your efforts to understand the concepts and read them. And this I really find this Coursera courses very useful. I did many of the Coursera courses of machine learning, deep learning, and NG's courses are very useful. So just go through them, and you will be easily able to understand the concepts. Those are not very difficult to grab. So I think
Mhm.
only basics of mathematics and probability theories should be clear to you.
Yeah, I totally agree. Even Andrew and Jay is everyone's like
Yeah,
the go-to guy. Uh,
yeah.
yeah. So for the last question, So I hope you are watching movies as well. I mean, in your free time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
any movies that strike your mind when you think about AI/ML? Some movie which featured really good AI/ML stuff, and you're like, oh, this is like very sci-fi and hi-fi.
Okay, so yes, there are many such movies. Which one I should say? The latest movie, there was a movie called Robot, no?
Yeah, yeah.
I think it is now it's long back or in 2018 or 19, I think, no?
The Rajinikanth movie?
Yeah.
Yep, yep. It was
Yeah.
some time back. Yep.
Yeah, I think, but there was a very huge applications of AI/ML
Yeah,
was there in Robot. Yeah,
true.
so maybe I should name that movie.
Sure. Thanks a lot. Yeah, that was my last question. I hope you enjoyed the
Yeah, really, I
rapid
have
fire.
enjoyed. Yes, I was
Yeah,
not aware of this thing.
yeah, that's why it's a surprise. We do that for
Yeah.
everyone.
Oh,
So
good.
yeah, because it's more like if we give the questions, it will be more prepared kind of questions. We don't want that. We want you to be you and answer these questions. So thanks a
Yeah.
lot for answering these questions. It was a great uh, webinar, and it was nice talking to you. Thanks a lot for joining us. Do you have any closing remarks for the session?
No, thanks for inviting me, Anand and Vishwas. Really, I must thank to you. Yeah, and I really enjoyed the session, this rapid fire round, and the whole session was very good.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you.
you.
Yeah, as a closing remark, this was a great webinar. Thanks a lot, Dr. Sribarna, for joining us during the session, taking some time off your busy schedule and joining us. We are hoping to see your cooking session soon. Thanks a lot for joining us. It was a great Saturday to begin with, and thanks a lot for doing this session. Thanks a lot all the participants for joining us. So this session is officially closed.